Good evening, and welcome again to another episode of The Puppet State. I am Utopia.
And I'm Ditz. Tonight, we will have a very boring episode about art.
No, Ditz. Art is exciting, especially when you involve politics, which is what we are all about.
Oh, okay. We will have a not boring talk about art and how it interacts with society and the state.
Our special guest tonight will help us to interpret different styles of art and how they interact with us and how we interact with art.
We will explore the ways in which artistic expression can be used to identify, legitimize, and even challenge government and society itself.
Our first guest is here to tell us a little about the dangers of creative expression to society and what we must do about it.
Thank you for having me. Though I must protest the conditions of this entire show. Don't you know that theater is sinful? Oh, really? Do go on. Yes, creative expression in theater and public demonstration distract us from being productive members of society and damages every individual living with the general will.
The general will? Isn't that a way of brainwashing people into being good citizens?
No, heavens, no! Why would you think that? No, the general will is merely the many voices of all the citizens. It's one song which they keep in their hearts. Only the most virtuous people will create a good society and government, which means that we cannot have destructive elements like theater distracting us from all of our obligations. Are you talking about the kind of theater where people take their clothes off? Because that's very distracting. Exactly. Look at this poor wastrel, led astray from productive habits like farming and cleaning, whatever your peasants do.
So, you don't work yourself?
Of course I do! I think! For uneducated people like you, society requires dutiful subjugation to the common interests of all citizens. Theater and creative expression that does not reinforce the general will and patriotism undermines the strength of society. Theater portrays and glorifies virtues while turning the virtuous man into the clown and buffoon. Entertainment for the people only leads to a reduction in the quality of civic virtue, and society must therefore suffer. Women are also naturally disruptive to society. What with their gossip and emasculating habits toward decent and wholesome men? Wow, you must have been really popular with those around you. No, but time shall remember me forever, and thusly did I die like the good wine, alone, bitter, and in a damp cellar.
Well, I'm certainly unsurprised about that. Thank you for your, input.
Of course you're thankful! And I'm happy to give you the truth. Well, Rousseau certainly had a dim view on artistic expression. He really believed that it could undermine the state and society.
Luckily, not everyone seems to think the same way as our opinionated guest. In fact, many governments have used art to gather support and legitimacy. In the most extreme form, we can see propaganda being used to guide the general will, or social interests, into desired pathways.
That's right, Ute. But don't only socialist, totalitarian, communist dictatorships use propaganda to brainwash their people?
While they certainly are very overt in their use of propaganda, but they were not the only ones who do so. Remember the posters in World War II that said, "Loose lips sink ships"?
Yeah, and there were a lot about girls and foreign ports with their foreign parts and venereal diseases. Wait, that was propaganda? I thought it was just really good advice.
Much of state propaganda is used to give advice about how to be a good citizen. Governments require public approval. What better way to do that than just telling the population to do so? I have here some examples of modern propaganda pieces that can be used to reflect our own American society.
Ooh. Ah. Oh. Wow. those really inspire me to buy guns and vote for the right kind of people in government.
We can easily see here how soft-minded people like Dizd can be persuaded to change their decision-making to support a state-desired outcome. Edward Bernays argued that propaganda is essential to democracy, much like violence is essential to totalitarianism.
And how, Ute, do I feel very democratic right now?
The state uses art to interact with its people in very powerful ways, but that road is a two-way street. The people themselves can use art to influence how the government runs itself.
Wow, Ute, that was very poetic.
Thank you, Dizd. I made that up myself. Now we have our special guest who will teach you, your faithful hosts, how to interpret artistic examples in a political way. Please welcome Arthur C. Riddick.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It truly is your honor.
It sure is, Art. What will you be showing us today?
Well, first, I must tell you a little bit about my life. It all began with a sigh, a glance, and a lot of beer. You see, my mother
I'm sure we don't really need to start that early. How about you tell our audience about your first presentation?
Well, if you're sure. Well, to begin our discussion, I have an example of Italian futurism. What do you see here, and what can you interpret from the piece?
I see a lot of random paint marks. It all looks a bit blurry.
Oh, Dizd, you short-sighted fool. This is obviously an attempt to capture the movement of dancers.
You are both so adorably ignorant. This is obviously a futuristic blend of nationalism and expansionary vision of the world.
What?
Huh?
Yes, futurism is a celebration of nothing but the future. This artistic movement celebrates youth, vitality, and, to use a colloquialism, awesomeness. Filippo Tommaso Marinetti once said, art, in fact, can be nothing if not violence, cruelty, and injustice.
I don't really see much violence in this piece.
Oh, I do. I see violence. This is a piece that rejects the colloquial traditions of the past while celebrating the virility of the future. Only technological process can drive our society into the desired future.
Yes, we must strive to let the youthful derive progress and eliminate femininity from our culture.
Oh, wait, what?
So you're saying that artistic representations of desired futures can change the outcomes of society and the state?
Yeah, absolutely. The futuristic movement in Italia helped to finalize the political vision of the fascist Italia. Not that this was a good thing. Right.
But didn't Rousseau say that art is a tool to undermine society? Where can we see that in history?
Heavens. The excellent question, Dizd, was it?
Yeah, my name is Dist.
Indeed. Yes, in the beginning of modernism is an artistic expression, has its roots in the Industrial Revolution. Art has traditionally been the realm of the elites. Those in power commission pieces from artists who never challenged their position in society. But the social revolution of industry allowed for class mobility and the disposable time. Suddenly, the everyday man had the ability to just go out and paint. It was horrible. Art then became a practice of expression rather than a livelihood. I have here an example of abstract expressionism. What can you interpret from it?
A bunch of lines and dots. Hey, I could paint that.
Wrong.
Oh, I see an example of individual expressionism, regardless of who might be looking at it. This is an artistic style that does not rely on traditional form. I see nature expressed as modernity and action. This painting is a process rather than a product, and truly speaks to my soul.
Very good, Jude. This is an example of the modernist style and the style of Jackson Pollock. This kind of art does not allow us to rely on traditional forms of interpretation. We cannot rely on society to give us meaning to the piece, only ourselves. Susan Sontag argues that the rules of interpretation reflect rules of power. Abstract expressionism allows us to make our own rules, therefore making our own rules for society.
Wow! So the way that we interpret art could be a way of resisting the dominant ideologies of the state?
Very good, Jude. Indeed, you might learn something from your dear brother about artistic interpretation. For my last example, I have here a piece which reflects minimalism. What do you know about minimalism, Dizd?
Absolutely nothing.
Ugh.
Good. Now what do you two see in the painting?
Well, this is obviously an artistic statement about the moral blemishes we see in our society today. We can interpret this as an example of the stains of vice in accepted societal practices like parties and fun. I would argue that the black mark is a judgment on the morality of all the people looking at it, a judgment on our very souls.
That's a black spodge and a piece of white paper.
Good. Very good, Dist. Minimalism attempts to take all meaning away from art appreciation. Minimalist art makes demands only on the viewer and reflects the individual participating in the artistic space itself. What I see is a polar bear blinking in a snowstorm. Yeah, quite. Ultimately, this style of art is a great emancipator. Anyone is allowed to have the correct interpretation. Now, what have you all learned today about art, Newt?
I learned that art can reflect not only on individual values and virtues, but societal ones as well.
Oh, and I learned that the state can use art to sway the opinions of society and social trends, and that art can change the outcome of the state. It is truly a powerful tool of political capability.
And hopefully, we can all walk away with the understanding that society and the state needs competent art critics like me. Please hire me.
Thank you, Art C. Riddick, for that fascinating insight into the power that art has on the state, and vice versa. This is all the time we have for tonight. Join us next week when we talk about the ways that puppets can be used to challenge state authority. Wait, what?
Good night, folks! Hey, you,
What?
John Locke.
Oh, god damn it.
What on earth was that?